Okay, Nick, let's look at the change in the unemployment rate going from August to September. What did we see in Oregon?
Oregon's unemployment rate was 5.5% in September. That's a little change from the August rate of 5.4%. So it's typical for the unemployment rate to increase a little bit in the summer as there's an influx of job seekers to the labor market. It takes them a little while to find jobs. Usually they do by the fall.
And so, what did we see as far as non-farm payroll employment, and what does that look like over the last, say, year here in Oregon?
Well, Oregon continued its very strong job growth over the last year, and we added jobs in September. There were 2,400 new jobs in September, and that's following a large gain in August. Over the last year, the growth rate for jobs in Oregon has been 3.5%. That's much faster than the U.S. rate of 1.7%. It's also really fast compared to other states. Last month, Oregon was looking at a job growth rate that was tied for first in the nation. And in fact, we've been in the top 5 among states for job growth since February 2015.
Anything we can put our finger on as to why Oregon has had such a good growth rate in comparison to the rest of the country?
Well, some of the sectors that weren't adding jobs earlier in the recovery in Oregon have really started to add jobs. Construction is seeing the fastest job growth over the last year. Oregon's professional and business services is also adding a lot of jobs. So we're seeing broad-based growth right now. No major sector has lost jobs in Oregon over the last year.
So we talked about the job growth rate. Any particular industries where we saw that more than others last month?
For September, the sectors that added the most jobs was government, which added 3,300 jobs. That has to do with the start of the school year. So these job gains are concentrated in local government education, and that could be because they did their hiring a little bit earlier this year, or they're expanding and hiring more staff this year.
And what about the labor force itself? The last couple of months you've been reporting that our labor force growth has been at a pretty rapid pace. Has that continued as well?
The labor force is growing very fast, and that's part of the reason the unemployment rate has increased. A lot of people are finding jobs, but so many people are entering the labor force. Some of them aren't finding jobs right away, which is increasing the unemployment rate. When we look at the labor force participation rate, which is the share of the population that's either working or actively looking for a job, that's been on the rise also. After years of declining, that's rising again. So in September, the labor force participation rate was 63.2%. That's up from 61.2% a year ago.
So we haven't talked about this in a while, but certainly during the recession, the story was for a long time talking about discouraged workers and the U6 rate. I imagine that has pretty much been mirroring the regular unemployment rate and that it's been coming down. What have we seen there?
The U6 rate counts people who are unemployed, but it also adds people who are marginally attached to the labor force, which means they're not looking for a job right now, but they have recently, and maybe they're not looking for a job right now because they're discouraged about their job prospects. Our estimates don't show a lot of those people right now. The difference between the unemployment rate and the U6 rate in Oregon really has to do with people who are working part-time, but they'd rather be working full-time. However, with this strong job growth, we've even seen the number of people who are involuntarily working part-time decrease.
Now, since May, the unemployment rate, and I think you've talked about it a little bit with the labor force participation, but the unemployment rate has slightly gone up a full percentage point from 4.5 to now 5.5. Any concerns there as far as what you can see?
Not really. The unemployment rate earlier in this year, in the spring, was 4.5%, which is the lowest it's been in Oregon in the last 40 years. So we hit a low point in the unemployment rate, which is great, and it's increased slightly, 1 percentage point to 5.5% in September, but that's still really low for Oregon. It's not that much different than the U.S. unemployment rate, and it's about where we'd expect it to be during an expansion.
So, how would you characterize this expansion now? The recession very much in our rearview mirror here, but you're talking about now over 50 consecutive months of job growth. So, how do you kind of characterize where we are now as an economy?
Well, job growth is a story right now. Adding jobs at 3.5%, much faster than the U.S., ranked among the top for states in terms of job growth. We've also recently added the most jobs in a 12-month period that we've ever had, going back to 1990 when comparable records began. So we're looking at record number of jobs being added this year.